Okay, I have started the recording of this webinar, of this second part of the webinar, which is focused on the break-even point, because we felt that the young entrepreneurs from our consortium would need some help in calculating their BEP. And well, I will just start the presentation. As we said, the break-even point is an essential element of the business plan. Entrepreneurs need to understand when they will start to make a profit. And we are talking about making a profit because the break-even point is the point of zero loss. This means that at break-even point, the revenues of the business are equal to its total costs. And therefore, from that point on, the business will start making profit. Break-even point can be calculated by accuracy method or by graphical method. The accuracy method is based on the cost volume profit CPV formula, where we have Px equals Px plus FC plus profit, where P is the price per unit, X is the number of units, V is the variable cost per unit, FC is the total fixed cost. The accuracy method can be also simplified because at BEP the profit is zero, and therefore the formula would be Px equals Vx plus Fc. As you can see, we can also do the calculation of BEP in sales units. Let us make an example. If the price is 10 euro and I know that I have variable costs for like 7 euro per unit, and fixed costs are 1,000 euro, we would have X equals 1,000, which is my total fixed cost, divided per the difference between the price and the variable cost. Therefore, we would have 1,000 divided 10 minus 7. 1,000 divided 3 would be 333.33 euro. But don't be afraid. Charts are there to help if you already got lost into formulas. So let us see the graphical method. The graphical method is quite simple in Excel because all you need is to enter information from your previous analysis done inside your business plan. So you just take information from your business plan and you place them into an Excel chart. First of all, we need the essential data. Fixed costs, variable cost per unit, and sales price per unit. I have created an example where the fixed costs are 2,500 euro, the variable cost per unit is 1, and the sales price per unit is 1.3. I have also decided that I want my chart to display the increments for the x-axis display every 1,000 units, but you can decide whichever number you want, 100, 500, whatever. What you should get at the end is the break-even point chart. So let us see how. Well, using Excel, you need to create the chart, and for this, you will need to first create your table. Therefore, we will need to create a table containing the units, the fixed costs, the variable cost, the total cost, and the sales. Let's see. Units, we have decided that we want the increment to be every 1,000. Therefore, the first cell will be 0. The second cell will be the cell above plus 1,000. The third cell will be the cell above plus 1,000, and so on. Once you have set the formula, you just copy it and go up to the end of the column, and therefore you will have your units already displayed. The fixed costs will be equal to the cell of the fixed costs because they are the same no matter how many units I will produce. So we just insert the formula and we have already the second column filled in. Let's go further. The variable cost equals the number of units multiplied per the cell of variable costs. We've decided that it is 1 in our case, so we just insert the formula. We will have the first cell equal the units per 1, 0 per 1 is 0. We will have the second cell equal 1,000 per 1,000, and so on. We just copy the formula up to the end of the column. Then the total costs will be, of course, the sum of fixed costs and variable costs. We just set the formula here on the first and the second, and then we go down up to the end of the column. And you will also have your total costs. What we still need is the sales. Now, the sales equals the number of units per the sales price per unit, which is 1.3 as we decided at the beginning. Therefore, you just put inside the formula and then copy it to the end of the row. So the table is ready. What you should do now is just to select the columns, total costs and sales. You just select them in Excel. And then you go to Insert, Chart, and Line Chart. Sorry, this is in Italian, but, well, you will see in any language you have the same option. And what you get is this, the break-even point. Ta-da! It has been calculated automatically for you in Excel, so you don't really need to apply the formula to find it. But it is important for you because this would tell you that until this very point of your production, you will have no profit. It is only after that, little by little, your company will start making some profit. This is it. Thank you for your time. Okay, basically this would be my presentation. I will unmute again the microphones, just in case you have questions or comments on this.
Yes, and I have a question.
Yes, Christos?
Yes. First of all, thank you for the, although simplified but very informative presentation on break-even analysis and break-even. As you know, there are some limitations on this break-even analysis. For instance, the assumption that production equals sales. It's one of the assumptions that you know there are some risks behind it. Do you think
yes.
that this analysis is still useful for young entrepreneurs?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. Indeed, I agree that there are a lot of limitations for the break-even analysis. As you said, production always equals sales. That means that if we go to, sorry, it's just to, as you can see, production for us is this. It goes from 0 to 25,000 in our example. And the assumption of the break-even analysis is that the entire production will be then sold, which is not always the case. Another limitation would be that costs are either fixed, either variable, which is not always the case, and it's not easy to distinguish them in real life situation. Then again, that the selling price remains constant. This is another assumption which is not correct, because in real life the price always depends on the period of the year, on the quantity. There might be special offers, there might be a marketing plan, and so on. But yeah, it is a simplified reality, just like the SWOT analysis. But in my opinion, I think the exercise is still useful for would-be or for young entrepreneurs, as it forces them and it forces us to think about the financial sustainability and about profitability. It is important to have in mind the relationship between costs and prices, and it is important to know that increasing the price and sales and decreasing the costs, for instance, profit increases. So this would be my answer.
Thank you very much, Anna.
Thank you for the question. Any other comment or question?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
I understand now the break-even point is very important, but until now I didn't ask to the new entrepreneurs calculate the break-even point.
Okay.
Would you recommend us any further resources we could find online for the break-even point?
Yeah, well, I don't know if I can recommend something, but I know that there are many resources online, especially videos and PowerPoint presentations. So I'm sure that if you insert something like break-even point analysis in Google in each language or in English, well, you will find a lot of material coming from different professors or from universities and so on. There are also some which are very funny and very simple. Some are really like cartoons explaining the basics of the break-even point. No, I do not have a list of elements that I could recommend, but I would say that any short presentation of 5 to 7 minutes should be useful, coming from a university professor or from any university. There are a lot of university students or MBA students explaining this in a really simple way. Well, I think it could be useful. So please do the research in own language, and maybe you can select, I don't know, 4 or 5 items to propose to your young entrepreneurs.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for the answer.
Thank you, Mihaela. Any comment?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, Susanne?
Yes. Thank you for this presentation, Anna. I see that these two methods are a little bit more complicated than the general explanation, that the break-even point is the point where costs and revenues are equal. But I would like to ask, would you recommend this approach in calculating break-even points per units or break-even points in euros?
I think I would recommend both approaches. Because they both allow entrepreneurs to understand how much they need to produce and sell in order to have a profit. Well, you could either calculate it in the amount of units you need to produce. If we go back to the table, we will see that already creating the table, not even the chart, but in creating the table, this gives you quite a clear understanding of how much units you produce and how much you would earn. You see, as soon as there is a difference, a positive difference between sales and costs, your company is already earning. So either you approach this by units, either you approach it by euro, by the currency. It could be euro, it could be dollars or whatever. There's a certain point when you understand that you are making profit. And as you can see, even without looking at the chart, already here at this line, at 10,000, sorry, I'll just try to, okay, it is somewhere here at this point that the company is making a profit, because you are the sales are already higher than the total costs. And this is then what the chart will basically let you see. So either you approach this by units or by sales. The purpose and eventually the result is the same. It gives you a clear idea of how much you need to produce in order to have a profit, or of how much you need to sell in order to have a profit. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. Is there any other comment? Or, I don't know, question?
Yes, Anna.
Yes?
Yes. Just a comment. Thank you,
Yes.
of course, for the very good presentation and very explanatory. gives a very good idea of what it is and how it is calculated. Just to comment that this is an approach that we can use basically when we have certain products. If a business plan is on services, where we have different things and everything is calculated with a bigger range of prices. Then another approach could be to have the estimations and make the break-even point focused on in how many years somebody can reach the expected profit.
Yes. Yeah, I definitely agree, because when you are talking about, I mean, this is a very, very, very simple situation. Again, it is a simplification of reality. Of course, when you're producing, there's a funny cartoon online that I saw for the break-even point with a farmer producing apples or something, and that was really very, very self-explanatory, but again, the example was very simple, just like my presentation was trying to be. Yes, I agree that when you are talking about services and when you are talking about a price which is not the same for all the units and for all the services you are providing, the entire situation becomes more complicated. And it is more difficult to understand how much you need to, how many services you need to offer and to sell in order to get to the break-even point. And it is no longer a matter of linear progression, as you can see here in the case of the table, which goes from 1,000 to 1,000, because you're not producing only, I don't know, shoes, but you are producing a range type of services which have different prices, and you can assume that you will sell a certain amount of each of those services. So everything becomes more complicated than the units and the sales that we have in our chart. But still, this is the basis. So I would be happy to have young entrepreneurs understand very well this aspect in order to then be able to complicate it more for different situations, for different services, for different prices, and so on. But once they have understood this, they should be able to complicate reality in inserting all the elements of their own business plan. I don't know if this answers the question and or the comment. I'm sorry, I don't hear you.
Yes, Anna.
Yeah.
We have the same exactly approach with this. We totally agree.